6 months prior to August 1985, Sergeant Dirk von Hodel had been anticipating his release from active duty. He had served honorably in the Royal Netherlands Army throughout the duration of his active duty service and was looking forward to returning to college, returning to university, and studying architecture. He did not realize that before that month would be up, that his release from active duty request would be scrubbed, and that he would find himself in a Cold War that had gone hot. Now, by August 1985, after a severe amount of casualties, after suffering heavy casualties, he has found himself in charge of an armored troop as a troop commander, comprised mostly of conscripts and equipment recently loaned, fresh off the factories from West Germany. Now, by this point in time, NATO intelligence has identified that within their sector there has been a rotation of Warsaw Pact troops who have also been heavily attrited by this point in the war as well. There's been a rotation of troops. And the Royal Netherlands Army has decided that they will rapidly initiate Operation Hanseatic Lion in order to seize a key airport. Rostock Airbase is located roughly 15 kilometers south of the city of Rostock in eastern Germany. Satellite imagery, aerial reconnaissance, and ground reconnaissance has identified a gap in the Warsaw Pact lines created by this rotation of forces. The Royal Netherlands Army has decided to launch Operation Hanseatic Lion in order to push through this gap and seize Rostock Airbase. Dirk von Holland's force is the right flank, the anchor of this assault. His job is to seize the town of Krzyków and fortify that against any sort of Warsaw Pact or Soviet Red Army counterattacks. Little does he know, or the rest of the Netherlands Army commanders, or NATO commanders, that Soviet forces have in fact prepared a mobile ambush, a mobile defense of that perimeter, with the aims of trapping NATO forces in a lethal cauldron. The Team Yankee mission that best replicates this mission is media engagement. Both sides have objectives on opposite ends of the map that they're trying to seize. Captain Dirk von Holland's objectives is on the opposite side or vicinity of the Highway 19 road that runs south from Rostock, whereas the Soviet objective, the Warsaw Pact objective, is on the side closest to Krzyków, closest to him, so that they can seize that right flank and create that killing ground where they can trap NATO troops. The NATO objectives, Dirk's objectives, are here and here, whereas the Soviet objectives are here and here. Dirk knows that he is fighting in a complex operating environment. He knows that his Leopard 2A5s, based purely on experience, can go toe-to-toe with the best armor that the Red Army has to offer. They can take a pounding from T-80s and keep on going. However, he also knows that the Red Army employs a plethora of BMP 3s, 2s, and 1s, and just by the sheer weight of number, they can outmaneuver and get side armor shots in on his 2A5s. He himself personally has lost 3 2A5s underneath him in the past 5 months of hard fighting. As a result, he has had to spread these small number of tanks out across a wide battlefield. On his left flank, he's got his new lieutenant, Hendrik, and on his right flank is his other lieutenant, again, rushed through the officer's basic course, is Art. Underneath them, as close as possible, is his PRTLs and his manpad sections, located here, 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 and here. In turn 1, Dirk realizes that the Red Army forces have been arrayed here and here with their BMPs, preparing to conduct a double envelopment of his troops. Realizing this, he has ordered both Art and Hendrik to push farther outside the flanks, outside of the AA bubble, in order to conduct direct fire onto those mechanized infantry assets. The concussive sound of Leopard 2A5 fire reverberates through the town of Krustov, largely abandoned by its inhabitants. On the far left flank, Hendrik's platoon smokes 3 BMP-2s. However, Art's platoon on the right flank is far less successful, destroying only 1 BMP-3 and merely bailing out or concussing the crews of 2 BMP-3s. Lastly, the YPR platoon pushes forward up the secondary roads towards Route 19 and opens fire on the BMP-1 observation post, with no effect. During Soviet Turn 1, the Soviet commander attempts to range in smoke in order to obscure the movement of the BMP-3s on Dirk's right flank here. However, the Soviet battery fails to range in, leaving the BMP-3 company wide out in the open. On the Soviet commander's right flank, Dirk's left flank, the BMP-2s stand in their current position and continue to draw fire from Dirk's left flank, or Hendrik's platoon. Despite the lack of smoke cover, the BMP-3 formation on Dirk's right flank pushes forward out into the open. Lastly, they maneuver their Shilkas up towards this scrub here in order to suppress the reconnaissance platoon located here in the woodlines. The Shilkas open fire on the reconnaissance platoon in the woodline and completely miss. They have remained idle since the beginning of this game and are concealed and gone to ground, giving them a hit-on of 6 and up. The BMP-3s open fire on the PRTL platoon and destroy one of the 3 tracks. On the Soviet right flank, or Dirk's left flank, the Soviet BMP-2s open fire on the YPRs and miss. For Dutch Turn 2, Dirk orders the 2 remaining PRTLs to push forward into the town of Krustov in between the buildings to give them cover and concealment from the advancing BMP-3s. He himself moves forward to get a better firing position on the BMP-3s and opens fire. The Dutch right flank is just absolutely deafening. Tank main guns are opening up on BMPs. Reconnaissance sections are opening up on the Shilkas. Art's platoon over there on the far right flank just opens up, smokes 2 BMPs and bails out a second one. Dirk opens up as well, smokes one, bails another one. Lastly, the reconnaissance platoon there at the edge of the forest finally breaks cover and begins just to hose the Shilkas. Out of 4 Shilkas, 2 are left in flames. Meanwhile, the YPR main guns are silent on the left flank. Hendrik's platoon opens up on the BMP-2s that have been left there in the fields and destroys another 3 BMP-2s. Soviet Turn 2. By this point in time, the Soviet commander has radioed twice for air support to knock out those damned Leopard 2A5s. Nothing. High command is silent. The aircraft have been diverted elsewhere on the battlefield. He makes a difficult decision. There has been a flight of Hind helicopters located roughly 5 kilometers away out of sight. He calls for them to come up and hit the Dutch right flank. He sends his BMP-2s and his 3s on a desperate charge forward towards the objectives in order to put pressure on the Dutch forces. Dirk appears between the buildings in the town of Krustov and sees the Hinds racing towards his left flank. He swears loudly, but nobody can hear him over the din of gunfire. He knows that he's made a crucial mistake. Hendrik's platoon is far outside of the AA bubble. He knows that he has a couple of assets that could attempt to suppress the Hinds, but he does not have the full effect that he needs to keep Hendrik's platoon alive. The AA open fire and completely miss. Not a single Hind goes down. The Hinds open up with the Spiral 2s, AT-24 rockets. Theoretically, there's a good chance that the 2A5s should be able to bounce those shots and survive just fine. They don't. Hendrick's tank gets tracked. The right track explodes and rolls forward like a metallic ball of toilet paper rolling freely down a hill. The tank on his left and the tank on his right both erupt in a ball of flames. Panicking at their new situation, Hendrick's crew abandons the tank and takes cover immediately behind it, hoping that the Hinds will just swarm away. On the right flank, the BMP-3s open up in the reconnaissance section, just bailing out one, miraculously. However, right behind them are the Soviet infantry riders from the destroyed BMP-3s, continuing to push up, inching forward over and over again, getting closer and closer to that tree line. The Soviet BMP observation post watches as the Dutch AA missiles streak up towards the helicopters from behind the town of Rostock. They identify the position and they take their chance. They call for fire. Round 1, misses. Round 2, too far back. Round 3, right on target. Fire for effect. Nothing. The AA teams get by the bombardment unscathed, not a single hit. This is the small miracle that Dirk needs to keep the AA teams alive and provide fire and protection against any further Soviet air incursions. Dirk radios his left flank, Hendrick, once, twice, and then nothing. He assumes the worst, and that worst is confirmed as he watches pillars of black smoke slowly raise over to his left side. His YPR on the left, his YPR platoon leader on the left, has decided to pull back to another group of tree lines, leaving a bailed comrade behind, in order to protect the rest of the platoon from the BMP onslaught, and perhaps get a chance to pop out from behind on the left side and shoot at the BMP-2s with their main gun. In the center, Dirk orders his surviving PRTL anti-aircraft weapon systems to push forward out from inside of the alleyway and out to confront the BMP-3s and the Shilkas, while he decides to expand his AA bubble by ordering his anti-air manpad teams out from underneath the artillery bracket and into the 3-story Akami blocks to their front. To the right, Art orders his platoon to push back into the left, denying the BMP-3s any flank ATGM shots on his 2A5s, and allowing them to hammer them with their main guns again. On the left flank, Hendrick's tank crew fails to remount their Leopard 2A5. Instead, they stay hiding, seeking cover roughly 50 yards back, watching as the Hinds hover off in the distance, watching their kills start to billow up in smoke. The YPR crew does the same, opting to stay outside of their infantry fighting vehicle just a little bit longer to make sure that it doesn't catch fire and explode underneath them. On the right flank, the PRTLs, the one remaining non-bailed out reconnaissance vehicle, and the 3 Leopards open fire. The last 2 Shilkas get bailed out. 3 BMPs erupt in a ball of fire, with a 4th one being bailed. The platoon itself, the BMP-3 platoon itself, is down to 1 active BMP-3 with 2 more back in the rear, still bailed out. The Soviet commander is filled with an impending sense of dread as he watches from the 2-story red farmhouse on the far right flank of the Soviet line. As he watches, pillars of smoke begin to rise from the other side of Rostock. New pillars of smoke. Just like Dirk, he has radioed his BMP-3 commander not once, not twice, but 3 times. He cannot seem to figure out what is going on his left flank. All he hears in the radio nets beneath his command net is the sound of more and more casualty reports coming over the airwaves. Something new. The Shilka platoon has taken serious casualties, and 2 of them are on fire, and 2 are bailed out. No, what's this? One of the Shilkas have been bailed out twice and has decided to abandon their piece of equipment. But another one, the second bailed out crew, has hopped back in and is resuming the fight. It's a little bit of good news. Behind him, his fire support officer, or his FSO, is speaking with the Su-17 flight commander over the radio, insisting that no, he's not crazy. No, he's not drunk. That his battalion commander needs them to approach and strafe the town of Christoph, targeting the Dutch air defense assets in the town. The Soviet commander watches from the second floor, covers his ears as the jets shriek overhead deafeningly, with trails of black smoke billowing from their engines with their afterburners blazing hot as they roll through and strafe the town and attack the Dutch PRTLs. Dirk temporarily ignores the radio chatter coming from the company command net as he listens to Heyer's commands net on his alternate radio. The attack is not successful. Elements of the Dutch force are being ordered to fall back, but the right flank and the left flank need to hold fast to enable the main effort, attempting to seize Rostock Airbase, to withdraw tactically. They are then ordered, once given the signal, that they should begin the withdrawal process. The attack on Rostock is a no-go. I repeat, says the brigade commander, the attack on Rostock is a no-go. Fall back at the command signal. He pauses, and he looks up as he watches the Hinds hover around his left flank and to circle around the city, disappearing behind the wood line to his rear. He begins to pay attention to the platoon chatter, to the YPR platoon leader's chatter coming from the company command net on his other radio, his primary radio. The platoon leader had been frantically warning the company commander and other elements of the attack force that the Hinds were on the move and that nothing had managed to bring them down. Dirk looks over at the 3-story comedy block as his air defense team opens up. 1, 2, 3, white plumes of smoke erupt as missiles shriek towards the Hinds. Nothing. 4, 5, 6. He sees a Hind take a hit from behind the tree line and begin to spin as it crashes out of view. He knows they're making their way towards Art's platoon. He knows based off of the instinct and experience, knowing how the Soviets are operating. He also knows that this is the most dangerous course of action that will collapse his flank and completely endanger the NATO attack on Rostock. If they can get around and destroy his Leopard 2A5s with aviation assets, this whole thing is lost. It is up to him and his company to hold on desperately long enough for the central effort, the main effort, to withdraw. And the Soviet Hinds are not making this any easier. Movement ahead of him catches his eye. His PRTL turrets are turning in the direction of Krustov, down the main street. He looks in that direction and sees several Su-17 frog feet. Mark that. Su-17 fitters lined up, preparing to strafe. He closes his hatch as the main guns on the PRTL open up. He watches through the commander's sights as rounds impact and bail out his last 2 remaining PRTLs. Luckily, they've survived, but the crews get out as soon as the strafing is done and begin to run for cover inside of a yellow house. Meanwhile, to his right, Art's platoon gets hammered mercilessly by the Hinds. 2 of the tanks have been destroyed. Art's tank has been bailed out. There's nothing that they can do to stop the Hinds ATGM missile with their side armor. The fitters zoom off further down towards the right flank, heading towards other areas of the Dutch line. Art and his crew bravely hop back into their tank. Dirk, realizing he needs to close up his perimeter as tight as possible in order to buy precious time for the central effort to withdraw, orders Art and Hendrik, who he tries to raise again on the radio but fails again, to move towards his position. He also orders the YPR platoon to do the same, to consolidate, to shrink his defensive perimeter. The infantry stay in place. On the far left flank, Hendrik's crew decides to abandon their tank. They set it on fire and begin to flee off the battlefield. The infantry platoon take a few shots with their Dragon 47 missiles at the BMPs on the far left Dutch flank, or the far right Soviet flank. Only one hits. It was a small success. The main hope of just keeping the BMPs out of range, keeping them more afraid of the infantry than the infantry was of them. The YPRs converge on Dirk's position, but they've dashed, so they're not able to take part in the fighting this turn. Dirk and Art identify BMP-3s and open up on them, smoking the last of the platoon. The Soviet commander could taste victory. He was the primary effort for air support. He knew this. This was confirmed as FSO's fire support operator had let him know that another flight of fitters was inbound to take out the last 2 remaining Leopard 2A5s. He decided, rather than foolishly sending in his BMP-2s or his surviving units, he was going to allow the aircraft to take care of the last of the main battle tanks. The enemy, or the infantry, that had bailed out were slowly converging, moving behind cover, behind the forest, towards the bailed out reconnaissance section. They were going to be able to easily assault them, knock them out this turn, and then slowly make their way to the objective. It was just a matter of time. The Stinger section commander watched in the distance off to his left as the unmistakable, thin, black silhouettes of Su-17 fitters got larger and larger as the flight came down the same exact flight path. He turned and looked behind him and watched as the 5 surviving Hinds maneuvered from behind the forest where they had taken temporary shelter and moved towards the commander and Lieutenant Art's tanks. He had a very difficult choice. Save this commander, save the Leopard 2A5s, or save the PRTLs. He orders his section to turn around and attempt to lock onto the Hinds. They fire. 1, 2, 3. The rockets deafeningly blast off into the sky, heading towards the Hinds, who begin to take evasive maneuvers and shoot out their flares. They cheer as one takes a hit straight to the engine block, the rotors flying off, the helicopter itself spinning and then crashing into the tree line, erupting into a ball of fire. They cheer as a second one gets nailed right in the tail rotor, the helicopter itself whirring straight up into the air as if it was trying to do a barrel roll and then coming straight down on top of it. Another 2, 3, 4 Stingers fire. The surviving Hinds continue their evasive maneuvers, shooting their flares, completely tricking the Stinger missiles. The threat gone, the Hinds rush in, firing. Meanwhile, the Su-17's frog feet fitters came zooming in. Again, the exact same flight path. It was frustrating. Any NATO pilot would know never to do that. They came whirring down, opening up on the PRTLs who were crippled, destroying both of them before they zoom off, completely unfazed, unchecked. At that point in time, the Stinger section leader could have wept. He knew he had failed. The Soviet infantry creep forward. They prep their RPGs. They open fire on the reconnaissance section. They destroy one of the recon vehicles and double bail a second. The second crew bails out of their reconnaissance vehicle and abandons it, seeing that it's too far gone and that they are about to be swarmed and overran by the Soviet infantry. Dirk looks to the commander's sights towards the right in the direction that he saw the Hinds coming. He watches them shoot their flares, hoping that the Stinger missiles will knock them out of the sky. He watches as one gets hit and then disappears into a blind spot in the commander's hatch. The others race towards him. He contemplates, should he scream down to his driver to kick it, any gear, any direction, as fast as possible. It didn't matter. Before he even had a chance to let the words slip out of his mouth, his tank and Art's tank were both completely destroyed, erupting in balls of fire. For him, the war was over. The infantry platoon leader, the YPR platoon leader, and the Stinger section leader watch for brief, mere precious moments, horrified and helpless, as their commander's tank explodes. The tank rounds inside of it cooking off, one after another in more violent explosions. they decided that there was nothing they could do to hold off that Soviet onslaught. They decided that it'd be much better to withdraw from the battlefield, to survive and fight another day. We at On Guard Gaming hope that you enjoyed this standalone narrative-driven battle report. Essentially, we played the game and we allowed the game to determine the story. Created some characters, and a background and a strategic why in order to give it more weight and meaning. If you liked it, please comment, like, subscribe to this to the channel. If you didn't like it, I'm not gonna lie, we had a lot of fun making it, so we're still gonna put out some more anyways. Thank you very much and have a good day.